Hey everyone, this is Todd Leiser, one of your hosts of this podcast that we record out of Tin Pan Theater in Bend, Oregon, that we're currently calling Small Town Film Ghosts. Before we get started with today's episode, I first just want to say thank you for listening and hopefully continuing to listen. To be honest, this show is still a work in progress. To give a little context, when we released the first episode last week, things kind of blew up in our faces. Not in a bad way necessarily, but for as much preparation as we put in, we're still picking up the pieces and figuring out what this show is. For example, in today's episode, my co-hosts, Jared, Julie, and myself will talk about our favorite movies of last year for about an hour. In the future, our episodes will be a bit shorter, and I can already tell you that next week we will be talking about a movie that is available to watch right now virtually at tinpantheater.com called Some Kind of Heaven. By watching the movie through our website, you support us directly. We hope you can watch the film and then tune into our episode next week to hear our discussion. Lastly, in this limbo period for independent cinemas and film festivals like us, we rely a great deal on donations to keep going. If you can consider donating at an amount that is relative to the amount of content and programming that you enjoy from us, we really appreciate it. To do that, you can go to bendfilmmembership.eventive.org/donate. Again, that's bendfilmmembership.eventive.org/donate. There will also be a link in the description below. Okay, on with today's show.
Oh my goodness.
Tin Pan Podcast! It's the Tin Pan Podcast!
That was a great song. Is that our theme song?
You went there!
Small Town Film Ghosts! It's a podcast
About ghosts and films. Damn it.
Tiny theater
Yeah.
and nerds.
I'm really happy. I'm really happy that we've come to this idea of singing our theme song every.
Yeah.
Wait till we start drinking local beer.
Ooh, yeah. And we'll actually be shouting out the local beer companies. Thanks to so-and-so for...
Thank you for the Shansbury for sponsoring us and my numb face.
Thanks to the 10th Crux Pilsner I've consumed.
Yeah, this weird erection I have is brought to you by Boneyard Beer.
Oh my god. It is inevitable.
Welcome to episode 2 of Small Town Film Ghosts. I am your co-host, Jared Rassick.
I'm your co-host, Todd Leiser.
Co-host Julie Furness.
And hey, I just want to say, if you're listening again, you didn't hate the first episode, so thank you. Thank you for being here.
It's amazing. I'm so happy.
Oh,
Hey,
boy.
Honestly, I think one way to start this is, what was each of our perspectives or thoughts when the shutdown started to happen? And we were getting under the impression that theaters were going to close. I know that I was definitely under the assumption that it'll be just a few weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
I remember our conversation because we were going back and forth, remember? And we had the last spaghetti western.
Yep.
And we did it. And I said, use gloves. I was telling you, use gloves and make sure you use tongs and don't serve anybody, And then you were like, okay, we're going to close for the weekend or a week.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think I was actually crying when I called you the second time and was like, if the school shut down,
I remember that conversation.
Yeah.
And that was it.
At the very beginning, when people were very few people were making comments along the lines of this is probably going to last all year or whatever. And my initial reaction was, there's no possible way it's going to last this long. I was so skeptical of the fact that we would still be sitting here in December in masks. I did not imagine that to be the case.
It was a fair assumption because this is something that has never even happened in our lifetime.
Yeah.
This
exactly.
is a once in a century event.
Yeah. And normally, when you look at movies, when you look at the movies that you watched over the year, 95% of them are things that you saw in the theater. And for me, at least, I'm looking at my top 10, and in my top 10 movies, only one of them is a movie I saw in the theater, and I saw it here.
Hey.
You know, so
Hey, just a reminder, everyone, we are recording this in the Tin Pan Theater.
Yeah, we are recording this in Tin Pan Theater. We are dark right now, literally and figuratively.
Yeah,
emotionally.
we are the ghosts of Tin Pan.
We are. We really, really are.
But no, I agree that. I mean, I will admit that I'm a person who usually makes a big effort to see things on the big screen.
Right. Right.
I always fear that if I don't see something on a big screen, I probably won't see it later. And so this year kind of just forced me, like, okay, because once we got into about midsummer, and it was obvious that a lot of new movies were just going to become, VOD or straight over streaming.
Right.
It was that realization of like, oh, if I want to see the stuff that's coming out this year, like I'm gonna have to sit down in front of my TV at home and watch it.
Right.
And I didn't watch a lot of stuff because I just
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have a 4K TV at home, surround sound. I have the whole setup, theater seating.
And you still didn't watch very many movies,
right? I
still
didn't.
Yeah.
But I also had kids at home,
right.
So I watched a lot of children's movies this
year.
Yeah.
Right.
That is, most of my list.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was expecting. On my personal calendar, I have every premiere date on my calendar in a specific color.
For in a normal year,
everything.
You're saying? Or
in a normal calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so every Friday you'll see that color, whatever it is, with that coming out.
Okay.
Whatever opens, and that's usually Regal, right?
Yeah.
Because here I'm gonna see whatever
Yeah.
We're showing
multiple
right?
times.
Multiple times.
Yeah.
So I know I'm gonna see a lot. Period.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also sprinkle on some Netflix, sprinkle on some Amazon now, because my goodness, Amazon has just a little bit of Hulu. I think they're getting better.
They are getting a lot better, yeah.
But really, it's very. This year was like, all right, it was a different year, obviously.
Yeah.
And I thought TV was better than films this year. So
probably was.
Get into that, but yeah, this was for me. I shut it out like I shut out a lot of things this year, and it's actually very emotional.
Right.
I'm very sad about it.
Yeah.
Because I simply didn't have the energy. Or the time.
Totally.
This year.
Right. To like for film in general, or just to even think about
down and watching a film that I wanted to watch.
Right.
Because I was sad that I wasn't in the theater.
Yeah.
Or I was too tired from, one thing, our listeners may or may not know is that half of our state burned down this year.
Yeah,
and,
it did.
So the summer was just on top of everything else, Oregon went through a lot this year.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
And it was just, and we had Portland was a war zone also.
Yeah.
And I think it was just Oregon got the worst of the worst, I think, this year.
Yeah, it was bad.
And I was that was part of it, just being very emotional and being very tired. Anytime I would start something, it had to be early, because if I started it after 9, forget it.
Right.
I was out.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. I remember when everything was burning and the smoke was in the air, and it looked like the deepest, thickest fog you've ever seen in your life. You couldn't even breathe the air, and it's like, well, I'm already wearing a mask because of coronavirus, and even if there was no coronavirus, I would still have to be wearing a mask right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bad.
I had to wear a mask,
Yeah.
and even protective eyewear sometimes, and this happened a couple years ago in 2017 when when the fires were going and it was coming up from California. And
Right.
I mean, it was bad. So anyway, but definitely.
Yeah, we in a way I was thinking we lost the security of the movie theaters. Like, I do think movie theaters provide a certain amount of security or comfort when you go to see something at a theater, and so having that, you lost that motivation to necessarily see stuff at home.
Right. Another big one for me was the library being closed, because I was like,
right,
I've never, like, the library was here in Oregon, at least. The library was closed for like 3 months, 4 months.
It was a good solid period.
Yeah, and it was like I'd never like, yeah, sure, the library closes on Sundays or on weekends sometimes or whatever, but like to literally be like, it's Tuesday at 2:00 in the afternoon and I can't go to the library, for me was like such a surreal feeling.
Totally. Yeah, especially because I feel like that's one of those pieces of the community or some sort of public infrastructure that you assume is always going to be there.
Right.
And so
yeah,
when it's
exactly.
not,
exactly.
Yeah, it becomes a very surreal experience.
Yeah, and for us in Bend, at least for me, it was even more surreal because we live in the town with the Last Blockbuster, and I live a block and a half away from it.
That's right.
So, and they stayed open the entire time.
I mean, in a way, I think the Last Blockbuster, they had something to prove.
Yeah, oh yeah, they
did.
They did. And it was amazing what they did to keep people safe, and they did bring your movies out to you, and they were wrapped in plastic, like the whole deal.
Totally.
But there was a period where it was like, oh, I didn't get to see New Mutants in the theater, like, because that was right at the point where theaters were closing. But I was like, you know what? I could literally drive to Blockbuster right now and grab it off the shelf, you know? So that made it kind of like a little bit surreal also that we did have the option of the only Blockbuster left on the planet that stayed open throughout the entire pandemic.
Yeah.
I think they closed for a week, maybe 2 weeks.
They closed for a week because Sandy, our lovely manager there, who we're very close to here, she had to figure out how they were going to, to stay open.
Right.
And I believe at the time they were also acquiring that storage facility on the other side of Papa Murphy's.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's where the merch is.
The merch.
Yeah.
So, and then, they needed a week to kind of figure things out. And then she did. She
And-
figured it out.
And merch kept them going.
Is keeping them going.
Yeah, is keeping them going. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is. The last time I was in there was 20 people packing boxes in there.
Right.
So
Yeah, if you really want to support the Last Blockbuster, it's buy some merch.
It is interesting though,
Swag.
because I still, every time I go in there to actually rent a movie, there is always at least a dozen people looking to rent a movie also.
Okay.
Like, it makes me happy to see
they're not
that.
just there.
Yeah, that they're. I've never gone in there with there being nobody.
Yeah.
That's true. There's always someone.
There's always somebody.
Usually
yeah.
people taking pictures outside.
Yeah, a lot
or
of pictures.
Yeah. But renting a movie,
They do a thing now where you pay them once a month and you can rent 3 movies at a time, all month long, as often as you want. And I signed up for that, I think in February or March, like right at the beginning.
Nice.
And so every time I went in there, I was like, I can rent anything completely indiscriminately that I want. I don't have to think about it. I can just be like, oh, that's a cool cover. Oh, that has an actor I like in it. I don't need, and so that kind of helps me also, because I got so used to MoviePass and I got so used to Regal Unlimited that I was going to see anything just to be like, I want to be in a dark room for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And so having that option at Blockbuster kind of helps me a little, feel like I'm just going to grab this and like something I might not pay $4 to rent otherwise. I don't know.
Guys, I can't complain. We do have a very good opportunity with the Last Blockbuster in this town, and if I complain again about the fact that I was stuck on streaming, I feel like I should shut up, because the Last Blockbuster is such a great little space that we have.
We're lucky. We're lucky to have it for sure.
Yeah. Well, and we started a drive-in this summer. We were busy.
Yeah.
So we did. We did support them. In a
Yeah.
way.
Totally.
And the drive-in did really well,
and
right?
The drive-in did really well.
Yeah.
So-
Honestly, I almost feel like that was one of the biggest events that happened in Bend this year, was the drive-in cinema.
Absolutely. Especially like the premiere of the Last Blockbuster documentary was easily the biggest thing I've been to all year.
Absolutely. And people, who didn't know about it and were like just coming across the street from floating the river, and they were like, "Oh my god!" It really, it was. We were busy,
There was some stuff. Yeah. Do we want to get into our lists?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Jared. I feel like you should go first, so we know what we're up against.
Oh goodness! All right. Well,
So do you want to do like your top 5 movies you saw this year and maybe some other stuff? Like,
Yeah. Well, first, I just want to talk about the biggest disappointment movie that I saw this year. It was one that I was really excited for. I rented it at Blockbuster.
Nice.
And I was so stoked when I saw it on the shelf because I didn't know it had come out.
Oh, cool.
So I grabbed it, I took it home, watched it right away. It's Jesus Rolls, the spin-off of The Big Lebowski.
That's right.
I found it to be the most profoundly offensive movie I have watched in a really long time.
Wow.
And it's like, don't get me wrong, there is something deeply offensive about John Turturro playing a Puerto Rican. There's something a little off about that to me, especially Big Lebowski. He's in 2 scenes, and so it's like, okay,
it's a bit role.
Yeah, but this is like you are in a 2-hour movie that you wrote and directed and starred in.
Yeah.
And so Audrey Tautou of Amelie. Hey, how's it going? Good. How are you? Yeah.
All right. Actually, so Julie, why don't you go first with your list?
Me go first.
That
Okay.
sounded so natural, right? Right?
So natural. So yeah, I was just saying that I didn't have a ton of time or energy to watch films this year. For many reasons. Usually I watch quite a bit, and I plan my whole life around it. It seems at home, on the big screen, and also at work. So. Because I was spending so much time at home, first of all, I want to thank you, Disney Plus. You saved my life this year.
Yep.
Not only did you have the classics, of course, that I could introduce my children to and rewatch, but also you made the decision to roll out, these new Pixar films this year, and also so much content on that streaming site. So much content, and not just animation. So. Really saved me. So I would say my top 5 films of 2020 would be, of course, Onward. That was earlier in the year when we were definitely stuck at home, and we watched it as a family. That was one of the first films we watched as a family, and watched the whole thing all the way through. Had a great time.
And that was essentially like the test run for. I mean, you didn't know it at the time.
Yep. It was the test run because most people got Disney Plus because of The Mandalorian, which we'll touch on, I'm sure. At least I will anyway. But that day, that Mandalorian dropped. So, that was really the reason. But then, everything just opened up there. So Onward, of course, Tenet is on my list. Borat 2,
nice.
Surprisingly. Very nice. Surprisingly, and we could do an entire podcast about Sacha Baron Cohen.
I would like just to do one. My wife.
My wife. High five. I did have the Last Blockbuster documentary on my list because it was near and dear to my heart, as well as my co-host, and our drive-in. Because that, I feel like we were all a part of that inception, and that was a wonderful night. Whoever was there for the opening night, that was super fun. And then Soul, and that's going back to Disney Pixar, which I just watched recently, and it's on my list because, again, that was one of the films I've been able to watch from beginning to end. There isn't anything on here from Netflix because Netflix, I was so heavy into TV shows this year. So anyway, that's my list. I will say the worst film I saw this year, which was recommended to me also by my co-host, called Fat Man with Mel Gibson.
Oh boy.
Thank you so much for that, Jared. I thought that was going to be a fun date night with my husband, and lo and behold, I fell asleep 6 times. So
And let me say, Jared really hyped that one up. Jared was really going in for that one.
Yeah, he really was. And that's okay. That, honestly, that's okay because I actually went into it with a good attitude.
Hey, there you go.
It's kind of early, and I was like, all right, I'll give Mel Gibson a 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th chance. So yeah, did not like that.
Jared is currently about to eat something, so that's why he's not. Oh wait, hold on. He might have a response. Gotta hold
Okay. I saw the trailer for Fat Man, and I said, "Boy, doesn't that look good?" And we were all like, "Yeah, that looks pretty
sure
awesome."
It does. I agree.
And Mel Gibson as a violent Santa Claus versus Walton Goggins should have been a damn masterpiece.
I know. It should have been, but lo and behold, it wasn't.
It just didn't work out.
Oh boy. Anyway, moving on to TV shows. This was really hard.
Why don't we? Or
you want to?
Yeah. Let's
sure.
keep the movie theme, and then we'll do the TV
All right.
theme.
So I will throw it on over to Todd Leiser for your top 5 films of 2020 and one you absolutely hated, maybe.
Well, I want to Julie. Let's talk.
Go for it.
So, what you threw Tenet out there, but you didn't really say anything about it. You literally said this is the name of a movie that exists.
Okay, I will bring up Tenet later.
What did you think of that movie? Like, how did it make you feel? What did it make you think? Okay.
All right.
Because I feel like more than any other movie this year, that's the one I'm like most torn on in how I feel.
It's the most hot button issue of any movie.
It's not a bad movie. It's made with much skill and cool performances and amazing visuals, but does it make sense?
Well, I think that I thought we were going to expand on that one, so
sure.
I thought that it would most likely be on this guy's list over here, but because we were all kind of waiting for it, and saw it, most of us saw it when it came out, I think, or paid for it. I don't know,
right.
So
I'm willing to get into it a little bit right now.
Yeah.
I was gonna throw it out as an honorable mention, and for me, my experience with Tenet was I went into it knowing it's a Christopher Nolan movie. It's gonna do the Christopher Nolan stuff, and for me, I think when Dunkirk came out, I was like, "This is for me." That was my favorite Christopher Nolan film. I thought it was his best work to that point.
Quite the movie.
It is quite the movie, and knowing that Tenet was going to be him working in that science fiction realm again, and sort of the same sort of concepts he'd like to do, like with Inception, was probably the seemed to be the most similar movie.
Yes.
I was worried that it was going to fall in on itself, and to some extent, it still did. But I was surprised at how much I enjoyed Tenet. Like it didn't make sense, but I didn't care.
Right.
I still really liked it, and so I totally understand anyone who was disappointed by Tenet. I remember there was a Variety headline that said Tenet was the wrong movie at the wrong time. Oh God, Jared's about to bite into his hamburger.
It was the wrong movie at the wrong time, but for me, I will. If Christopher Nolan does a puppet show, I would watch it.
Yeah.
So,
I want to show up to his films because Christopher Nolan, he does represent a type of filmmaking that is very rare these days, and so I want to be able to see that stuff on the big screen. And I know, and I recognize also that he can be a very clinical filmmaker. It can be very cold, but I go to it to enjoy the spectacle. And I definitely, I remember even when Inception came out, I remember thinking at that time that it didn't quite hold up like I wanted it to. And It's a movie that I recently rewatched it, and it's better than I thought it was gonna be. I was sort of expecting the worst, and it still holds up to some extent.
Oh my gosh, I love it, but that's just me.
I haven't tried Inception in years. I haven't tried to watch it in a while.
And it is good. It is definitely good. I will not say it is a bad movie by any means. But I would say that it probably does have some of Nolan's worst tendencies where it can sort of fall in on itself.
Sure. And if you want to fall asleep, put Inception on. I mean,
Yeah.
seriously.
Is that your kryptonite?
Oh, yeah. And definitely Ryan's. So,
Oh, boy.
You know, oh, yeah.
But yeah, Tenet. I would say I think it was I think it worked really well. It was kind of fun, and yeah, I actually
biased,
really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I am biased because if this would have been last year, I probably would have added Dunkirk, too.
Sure,
Yeah. So it was a biased decision, really.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I didn't see much, so it kind of landed there because it had to be there. I don't know,
Totally.
I think it is. Yeah, worst timing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't trying to give you shit for that
No.
choice. I legit, I haven't really gotten to talk about that movie with anyone, and really kind of know what
I want to see it on the big
what worked
screen.
for people, what didn't work for
Mhm.
people.
I feel robbed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel a bit lucky that I did make an effort to see that one on the big screen.
Same, yeah.
I knew that was how I wanted to see it.
That's the only one I ended up seeing when theaters reopened for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go through my other. That one was one that I was gonna say was an honorable mention. So I'm gonna go through others. Tenet. Let's see, there was Baby Teeth, which was at Tin Pan. I want to give that one an honorable mention. It was honestly worth it just for Ben Mendelsohn's performance as the dad in that movie. That was one of those movies that's like sad, but also just kind of a great movie at the same time. Then I'll also give a little honorable mention to The Personal History of David Copperfield, which is a random movie.
Okay.
I am by no means a Charles Dickens fan. I mean, obviously, I've read A Christmas Carol like everybody else, but I've never read the book David Copperfield, or probably I've never read Great Expectations. So I'm really not much of a Dickens person, but this adaptation was done by Armando Iannucci, who co-created Veep, who did The Death of Stalin. So he's one of those satirists that I really love, and I really love British humor, which he excels in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember reading a quote from him where he said something like, "People that he appreciated the humor in Dickens." Yeah. So there's a quote from Armando Iannucci that I remember I read in the prelude up to this movie where he said that people don't see the humor in Dickens, and that he thought there was a real humor in Dickens' work that he wanted to bring out. And again, I feel like Armando Iannucci is one of those writers and humorists who I totally trust him a lot. So I was very intrigued by Personal History of David Copperfield. Also, the fact that Dev Patel is the lead role, that also super intrigued me. And the whole movie's got colorblind casting. And so yeah, I enjoyed it, even though I'm not really, by any means a Dickens fan. Also, I feel like 2020 was gonna be a big year for Dev Patel, because he had this movie, and he also was gonna be in The Green Knight, which was gonna be like A24's biggest release that they'd ever done.
Okay.
And yeah, I almost have this feeling like I feel like Dev Patel is trying to. I feel like there's some role he's gunning for that there's something he wants to do.
The big one.
Yeah.
Like he's right on the cusp of. Like I mean he. What was it? Lion. He got nominated for an Oscar, right?
Yeah.
Or at least the movie did. And then Slumdog kind of catapulted him quite a bit.
I mean, that was his first thing, basically.
Yeah.
Like he was only in the UK version of Skins before that.
Right. I'm in love with Hotel Mumbai. I thought that movie pinned me to my chair for 2 hours.
I should see those. I wrote those off too easily, and I shouldn't have. I heard good things.
Hotel Mumbai is rough though. You got to be ready because that movie's just a
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking of The Greatest Marigold Hotel.
Oh, no.
Different movie.
Hotel Mumbai is about a terrorist attack.
That's right.
And,
And
and
I remember.
he's
It's a story.
He's a bellboy or he works in the kitchen or something, and it's like it's done almost real time, so it feels very immediate.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's rough.
Okay, so really, I think I have 3 movies that I really love this year. One is The Trip to Greece, because I love the trip movies just unabashedly. I don't know what it is. I I mean, for one, I love Steve Coogan, and his rapport with Rob Brydon just always makes me laugh. I could watch those movies over and over again.
Okay.
I don't really have a good reason. I almost feel like I don't have an academic defense of those movies. I just
Is it the food or the travel that you like the most? Would you say, or the combination?
It's their dialogue and their the comedy of it. And
Okay.
and I think I also have a soft spot for like the way that British comedy also usually has some form of tragedy in it as well. So like there's a real sadness that's underlying those movies, even though it's them making silly jokes.
Right.
And
They're both like pretty deeply unhappy.
Yeah. Then I would say I remember when this movie first came out at the beginning of the year. I remember thinking, oh, this is going to be one of my favorites. I don't know if it'll actually make the top 10, but I didn't know what kind of year it was going to be. But that is Underwater.
Yeah.
Jared and I talked about this movie the other day. It is. I remember it when it came out. It got written off as just a clone of Alien or sort of a knockoff of Alien. I think it absolutely stood on its own. I really enjoyed it. I also just love that kind of horror film where people are in tight corridors running away from monsters.
Okay.
Because there wasn't much this year, Underwater is absolutely definitely one of my favorites, and I'm probably putting it at my number 2 for the year. My number 1 movie of the year is Bad Education on HBO with Hugh Jackman and Allison Janney. In a way, maybe that wouldn't count in a normal year because it's technically a TV movie.
Yeah.
But the thing is, part of the argument for it though, is that it got its premiere at Toronto in 2019. 2019. Yeah. So it was a movie that was made for the big screens, or for all intents and purposes, was made to be released. It was just that HBO picked it up.
Right. Right.
So it doesn't feel like a TV movie by any means.
Yeah, I mean, why can't HBO submit that film for awards, and why can Netflix?
I wish I knew the answer to that.
Do you know the answer to that?
Well, I know. I mean, I know that they're not going by it for 2020, but the rule is that it has to have a theatrical run for it to be eligible for an Oscar.
HBO has obviously always been comfortable with being in the Emmys and being an Emmy player.
Right.
I mean, maybe
Netflix though.
I mean, Netflix wanted it to be everything. They wanted to be both they want to compete in the Emmys and they want to compete in the Oscars.
Right. And every year they keep getting more nominations. So,
I mean, really, the reason why Netflix is like that is because they saw the writing on the wall 10 years ago when they knew that eventually the streaming wars were going to happen, and they've been jumping on it basically before, trying to get ahead of everyone else.
Be number 1.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, that's I think that's my top. I will say probably my biggest disappointment. I didn't hate this movie. It wasn't bad. But I think at the moment, David Fincher's Mank is my biggest disappointment. Not because it was necessarily bad, but because I really love David Fincher, and usually there's always an energy I get from his movies. And I got done watching Mank, and I just thought that was good, but it didn't feel like a David Fincher movie.
Okay.
It didn't have that energy. So again, not one that I didn't hate by any means.
You're just disappointed.
Yeah, just it
And I think
didn't
actually
hit the high mark that I expected.
I think people felt the same about Tenet. Actually, the ones who panned it were disappointed in Christopher Nolan. They felt the same way. Like, okay, I don't know.
I think there was something about the transfer of Mank to Netflix. And
it was always a Netflix movie.
Totally, but the way the black and white looks on Netflix just doesn't look very good.
I was very aware of that.
It doesn't feel like there's just something missing from the texture and the grain from it. So instead it just kind of feels like
for
fake black and white. I don't know.
Everything that was written about how they were trying to make that black and white look like it was a 30s film, do all this stuff.
Right.
While I was watching, I kept thinking I would have loved to got all that detail if I was seeing it on a big screen.
Right.
But because I'm seeing it over Netflix, Netflix is just the
compression.
The compression.
Yeah.
I'm just losing all of that.
It made it feel like an affectation as opposed to like a purposeful thing. I don't know.
I am hoping that at some point I will be able to watch Mank on the big screen in the future, and hopefully I will love it then.
Yeah.
That's my hope.
Yeah. It's a solid script, and Gary Oldman's great, and but yeah, it absolutely does not feel like a David Fincher movie at all.
Well, and I felt that way about Parasite, the black and white version. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but I was like, when we booked that, I was not happy. I was like, especially for first timers.
Yeah,
right.
I didn't want first timers to see it.
Totally, no, yeah. There were a lot of people who were seeing the black and white as their first version, and that was too bad.
And I kind of took a poll, when people came in. I was like, all right, who has seen this before? Who hasn't? You know, and I would tell people, please see this in color.
Yeah.
When you have an opportunity to.
Right.
We brought it back in color.
We did.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Was the concept behind having it in black and white to make it more noir-y?
It was. My understanding was that Bong Joon-ho said that he envisioned the movie so that it could be a black and white movie, similar to how George Miller sort of envisioned Mad Max Fury Road, that it could also be a black movie.
Okay.
It was never the goal, and so when they decided to release their black and white version of Parasite, I remember a quote from Bong Joon-ho saying, "This is just an additional way to see it, but it shouldn't be seen as the definitive one."
Right.
Because
just
I
a
thought
goof.
color was such a big part.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I was disappointed. So
I thought color was a huge part of Mad Max. That's why I didn't get the black and like
I've never seen it.
I watched the black and white version of it, and it's like the textures look great, and it's because a lot of the movie takes place in a desert, like it looks okay, but also that movie's a lot of really great like reds and oranges and explosions.
Gold is a huge
movie.
It didn't totally, and like the blue sky that you see a lot in that movie.
Yeah, I feel like one of the only movies I ever saw that they made a big to do about releasing a black and white version of it that actually made it better was The Mist. And that was because Frank Darabont is a great filmmaker, and The Mist I think is kind of one of his most underrated movies. And the thing that made that movie crummier than it was bad CGI.
Right,
and
that unfortunately I feel like is what it's remembered for.
Yeah, and in black and white the CGI looks fine. It looks totally fine, and so when you see a monster whose textures don't look right, they look just fine in black and white. It literally fixes every issue I had with that movie.
I feel like black and white is also usually credited for anytime there's blood scenes in some older films.
Right.
When you think of Pleasantville.
Right. Sure.
That transition there.
Yeah.
I'm just so much happier with color. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, Jared.
Agreed.
Are we going to move on to your movies?
Sure. So my biggest disappointment film-wise of 2020, I really, really didn't like the Big Lebowski spinoff, Jesus Rolls.
Oh, man.
So Audrey Tautou, who to me is iconic for Amelie, plays a really stupid, kind of annoying prostitute in it, who bangs every character in the movie in a way that, and none of them care. There's no jealousy. There's no fighting over it. It's just like, it's treated like we're all gonna have sex at some point, and that's fine, whatever. But it felt so like there's something about the movie that feels tacky, and it feels like a throwback to shitty 70s movies that didn't have any thought behind the intentions of the characters or what they wanted to do. And I don't know, it's a bad movie. And that character, I don't know if anybody remembers this, but John Goodman in The Big Lebowski brings up the fact that his character's a sex offender and a pedophile. And so the hoops that the Jesus Rolls
has to jump through
to explain that. It just felt like, why was this a movie that Turturro needed to tell? Why did he want to write it? Because he's directed some great films.
Right.
And,
You know, he's created a career as a director in addition to being.
Was
an
it worse than the
actor.
Brown Bunny?
Yeah, because ultimately the Brown Bunny, as pretentious as that movie is, Vincent Gallo had intention. He had a reason he wanted to make it. He had a vision for what he wanted it to be. That vision sucked, but there was intent. Jesus Rolls has no intent. There's no reason for it to exist.
Yeah.
There's no passion in the directing. There's no
Oh,
passion in
man.
the acting. There's just nothing.
I think that is probably the best choice for biggest disappointment.
Yeah,
I'm
it
sorry you
just-
had to suffer through it.
It wasn't good.
Someone had to though.
My biggest surprise enjoyment movie was Greenland, which is the brand new. I watched it. I think I watched it on Amazon, or I VOD'd it. It's the new Gerard Butler End of the World movie.
Oh my god.
Wait,
Wait, hold on. Did you see Geostorm?
yes, I did in the theater.
Nice.
And I love that movie.
That was a McMenamins movie if there ever was one.
Dude, and the thing I love about Geostorm, which that movie sucks bad.
Oh, it's bad. But man, is it fun.
But it's fun because it's not like Gerard Butler, the action star, trying to outrun the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's Gerard Butler, the action star, playing a scientist trying to outthink the end of the world,
Okay.
which made it so much funnier to watch.
Oh,
like Gerard, you can't punch anything. You've got to think your way out of this one.
Yeah.
Come on, Jerry, let's see it. Greenland, though,
yeah, please tell me.
legit pinned me to my chair for 2 hours. Like, it's very well directed, and it's the most realistic view of what, like, if the world found out. So it's a meteor or a comet is going to hit Earth.
Okay. Big rock heading towards Earth.
but so it's supposed to hit the Indian Ocean and make a little wave, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But it ends up like landing in Mumbai and killing 10 million people. And then they realize, oh God, everybody was wrong. This is an extinction level event, and it's happening in 72 hours. And Gerard Butler, his character, gets a thing on his phone saying, you and your family have been selected to be kept alive in a bunker. You need to get to this airport at this location by this time for us to get you to this airport. And so, or to get you to this bunker.
Yeah.
And so the whole movie is him trying to get his wife, who's, I can't think of her name, but she's Deadpool's wife in those movies. And Monica Baccarin?
Yeah.
And then his son, who is diabetic, a type 1 diabetic.
Oh my gosh.
So the whole movie is them trying to get to a place in 2 days. And I was on the edge of my seat.
That does sound actually really good based off your
It
description.
was super good. I also recommend Spree, which is Joe Keery from Stranger Things.
Oh.
He is an Uber driver who live streams
heard about this movie,
and has no followers, and he's tired of having no followers, so he decides he's going to start killing his passengers. And the thing that makes it a damn classic is that he starts killing people and still doesn't get more followers. It's still not enough.
That is so
Like,
good.
people are like, the movie is saying that we're so desensitized, but that still wouldn't be enough to. I don't know. I loved it. My favorite movies of the year, I gotta say, Underwater is in my top 10 also.
Awesome.
That movie is expertly crafted and directed, and the fact that everything goes to shit literally 2 minutes into the movie. There's literally,
Right.
like,
No, yeah.
she's brushing her teeth.
Yeah, plot point 1 happens immediately.
Yeah,
There's
she's
no
brushing her
inciting
teeth,
an
and the world ends. Like, it's instant. Baby Teeth is also in my top 10.
Nice.
That's the last movie I saw in a theater this year, and I absolutely loved it. My number 8 is The Vast of Night. I thought it was a masterpiece. It's Amazon, first-time director. It's about a teenage switchboard operator and a teenage DJ who hear radio signals and think that there are UFOs coming in the 1950s desert.
That's super exciting. Wow.
It has the best dolly and crane work I have seen in a movie all year long. And the fact that it's a first-time filmmaker is astounding. It feels like a radio play that would give you nightmares as a child come to life.
Awesome.
My number 7 is Relic, which is probably the best horror movie I've seen in several years. It's a woman and her daughter, and the grandmother disappears, and so they go back to their like childhood home to look for grandma. And the whole movie's a metaphor for aging, and it's beautiful. It's like, what if the haunted house is your own body is kind of the tagline for it a little bit. Just gorgeous. Number 6, which I don't think anyone's heard of this movie. I'm obsessed with it. I've watched it 3 times. It's called The Wolf of Snow Hollow. And it's this filmmaker, he writes, directs, and stars. Okay. And he made this amazing movie 2 years ago called Thunder Road. And he's like the king of portraying men right in the middle of a nervous breakdown. Like, that's what he does. And so
I still want to see this guy's work.
Yeah, he's amazing. And so his father is played by Robert Forster, who died right after filming or during filming. And his father's the sheriff. He's sick. He's in the hospital. So this young cop is in the process of becoming a sheriff.
Yep.
While people start getting killed by what is apparently a werewolf. And he doesn't believe in werewolves. He's angry at all of his deputies for even mentioning the word. And meanwhile, his daughter hates him. His wife is estranged. And he's trying desperately not to take a drink. And it is, as a character piece, you're on the edge of your seat. Just like, I want this guy's life to be okay. And then you remember, oh shit, there's werewolves. And so it's just, I don't know, it's amazing.
And also the movie's a comedy, right?
And it's the funniest movie I've seen all year. Easily the funniest movie I've seen all year. Number 5 for me is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I love August Wilson as a playwright. I thought Fences was easily the most underrated movie of, 3 years ago. And it really shows, don't get me wrong, Chadwick Boseman has been incredible in films before, but his work in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is like, he's never done anything like it. It feels chameleon-like. It really does. Number 4 is Soul, which it was just a beautiful movie, but ultimately, like, it wasn't perfect. I feel like it didn't hit me emotionally as hard as I wanted it to, but
I just read a list
it was
that, like,
just beautiful.
It was beautiful at home. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm glad I saw it at home.
Yeah.
HDA, like, I was closer to it. If I had seen it on the screen, I don't think I would have connected.
I feel like it wouldn't have connected on a bigger screen. I really do. There was something that needed to be intimate about that movie.
Is an intimate type of music.
Yeah,
totally. You know, it's meant to be an intimate space.
Yeah. And then earlier this year, the director, Steve, oh my goodness, Steve
Gutenberg?
I will edit this. Steve.
Spielberg?
He's the
Soderbergh?
He did 12 Years a Slave.
Oh, McQueen.
Oh, yes, thank you. Okay.
You know, the one we confuse with the other.
Yeah, with the other Steve McQueen, totally. So earlier this year, the director Steve McQueen, who did 12 Years a Slave, and the extremely underrated Widows, which is a damn classic film. He directed 5 movies and released them under this banner called Small Acts, and it's all about stories of people of color in London or around England, and like in the 70s and 80s. I think there's one that's in the 60s. One of the 5 films he did is called Lovers Rock, and it's an hour and 10 minutes, and the whole movie is a dance party. And it's a church girl sneaks out of her house at night to go to a dance party, and then the whole movie is this dance party. And it, like, sitting there watching it and having not danced with anybody in a year or been around it just, something about it felt so immediate and so intense and beautiful, and like, it's just a celebration of life. It's an amazing film.
I feel like Small Acts has topped a lot of best of.
The movie Mangrove, which is like, most of the movies are around like an hour 15, but Mangrove is like 2 hours 20. Yeah, and that one, I know it's like a court case movie, and it looked really heavy and sad, and I wasn't quite ready for it, so I haven't seen it yet. But Lovers Rock was amazing. My number 2 is First Cow. That it's about two best friends, and they want to make some biscuits in the Oregon territory, but they're broke, they have nothing, and so they steal milk from this cow owned by the local military commander. Steal milk to make biscuits, and I don't want to say any more than that. It's very slow, very methodical, but it haunted me. And then my number 1, my favorite movie of the year, and it's funny because I watched it months ago and I just can't stop thinking about it, is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I read the book probably about 6 months before I saw the movie, and then the movie managed to actually do the ending better than the book did, which kind of blew. He doesn't change the ending; he just explores the idea of it differently. Whereas the ending of the book says, "This is what this means," the ending of the movie goes, "This could mean a lot of different things." But I'm also a diehard Charlie Kaufman fanatic. Eternal Sunshine's my favorite movie of all time. Synecdoche, New York is a perfect film to me, and I read Charlie Kaufman's book that he came out with this year called Aunt Kind, which was 750 pages.
Oh boy!
And loved literally every word of it. So yeah, I'm Thinking of Ending Things is my number 1, mostly though because we were talking about earlier, I want movies that make me feel things, and that movie, every time I think about it, I feel something different, and I feel like it means something different. So sorry, I didn't mean to do 10 of them, but
it's all right. You're the one who had seen more stuff.
I have seen way more movies. Yeah.
I was able to barely cobble together 5 and my honorable mentions.
Yeah, I'm glad to have all the streaming services. And it's crazy, too, because Baby Teeth is the only one of those 10 movies that I saw in a theater this year, and that, I believe, was the last movie I saw in a theater.
Yeah, you said that, yeah.
Do you feel like you're able to do your job as a critic better this year because you could sit at home and watch them, or was it harder?
It was harder because...
Because you talked about the experience as well, and you weren't.
Yeah, there's that aspect of it for sure, and then there's also the fact that when you go to the theater to see a movie, you're going because, oh my God, Wonder Woman came out today, or oh my God, Avengers came out today on Friday. I'm gonna go see that and review it. Whereas reviewing streaming things, it's 10 things came out this weekend. Which thing should I talk about? Which thing? Which thing has enough of a foothold in the cultural zeitgeist for people to even care about me talking about, There were weeks where I would write about a TV show that I wanted everybody to watch, and 3 or 4 weeks later, it would get big. And I was I was way too early on that one.
Isn't that kind of a good thing, though, if you've...
to be look at, you see that pulse? My finger's on it. That's always a good feeling.
Jared, I didn't know you were such a tastemaker.
Oh my God, I was a tastemaker. That is on my business cards.
You put tastemaker?
Yeah, tastemaker. It says Jared Russick, tastemaker, and then in quotations underneath that, it says taste the secret, which I don't know what that means. I believe it's a Starburst quote.
Your inside jokes are so good, you've forgotten what they mean.
So what's taste? Taste the secret is there's a hip hop group from the early 2000s called Ugly Duckling, and they have an album called Meat Shake that's a concept album about making milkshakes that taste like meat.
Nice.
And their slogan is "Taste the Secret." I don't know why I remember that. But yeah, it was way harder. I miss having. Not necessarily blockbusters, but I miss there being event movies to go see.
Having there be no movie schedule to
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like this last weekend, Soul and Wonder Woman coming out. It's okay, obviously I should write about one of these two or both of them because it's Wonder Woman and Soul. But 1 week when it's should I write about Queen's Gambit or should I write about season 5 of The Expanse, like, because it all just trickles out.
And there's also that thing where that every time something gets released on streaming, well, it's going to be there forever, so I don't have...
Right.
Like, I could watch it at any point. And
there's no rush whatsoever.
Yeah, and then inevitably you don't see it because,
Because you didn't, because 100 other things got between you and it. Yeah.
Whereas, when stuff was at the movie theaters, it's like, oh, I have to catch this while it's in theaters.
So, yeah, totally. I've gone to see movies I easily could have waited for on video just because I was like, oh, this closes tomorrow. I should go.
Yeah, I've done that a lot.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Todd here again. So that was our episode on our favorite films of 2020. We definitely recorded a bit more, but we're going to cut it there for now. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and donate to BendFilm if you can. Next week, we'll be talking about Some Kind of Heaven, so tune in then to hear our discussion. Thanks, everybody.